The night air over the Jabbok River was heavy and still, thick with the scent of water and the faint hum of insects. The moon hung low, its pale light silvering the rippling surface of the stream. Jacob stood alone on the bank, the cold dampness of the earth seeping into his sandals. His camp was behind him, quiet now. The fires had burned low, and his wives, children, and servants were asleep. But Jacob's mind was far from rest. Ahead lay a meeting he had avoided for 20 years, the meeting with his brother Esau. The last memory Jacob had of Esau's face was twisted in fury, the voice promising vengeance for the stolen blessing. Now, word had come that Esau was approaching with 400 men. That number echoed in Jacob's thoughts like a war drum. Earlier that day, he had divided his camp into 2 groups, hoping at least one might escape if Esau attacked. He had sent droves of livestock ahead, as gifts or bribes. To soften his brother's heart, he had prayed to the God of Abraham and Isaac, reminding him of his promises. But still, fear gripped him like a vice. He had sent everyone else across the river, keeping only his thoughts for company. The sound of rushing water masked the stillness of the night, but Jacob felt something else, something in the air, pressing in around him. And then, without warning, he was no longer alone. A figure emerged from the shadows, not a thief, not a soldier, but a man whose presence felt like both danger and destiny. There were no words at first, no introductions. The man lunged, and Jacob reacted instinctively, his body twisting to meet the attack. They collided with a force that sent both to the ground. The struggle began in silence, each straining against the other's weight. Muscles burned, breath quickened, and the soft earth beneath them turned to mud from the sweat and the dew. Jacob could not see the man's face clearly, but there was something about him, something unearthly. They wrestled for minutes that felt like hours, neither yielding. Jacob's mind raced. Who was this man? Why had he come? Was this an assassin sent by Esau, or was this some trial from God himself? The man's strength was unlike any Jacob had faced before, yet Jacob found a stubborn reserve within himself, a refusal to let go. Time passed. The stars shifted overhead. The river whispered and gurgled in the background, indifferent to the struggle. Jacob's limbs ached, his back screamed with pain, but he held on. The man's breathing grew heavier, but still he fought, driving Jacob into the dirt, then grappling to regain position. At last, as the horizon began to pale with the first hint of dawn, the man spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, but carried the weight of command. "Let me go, for the day has broken." Jacob, gasping, tightened his grip. "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man stilled, as though Jacob's demand had pierced deeper than any blow. "What is your name?" "Jacob," he replied between breaths. The man's voice deepened. "No longer shall your name be Jacob, the supplanter. From now on, you shall be called Israel, for you have striven with God and with men, and have prevailed." The word struck Jacob harder than any fist. Israel, one who wrestles with God. Could it be that he had been fighting, not a man, not an enemy, but a messenger of the Almighty himself? The man reached out and touched Jacob's hip, and with a single touch, pain seared through Jacob's body. His leg gave way, the joint wrenched out of place. He cried out, but did not let go. His grip was weaker now, his body trembling, but his will was iron. "Bless me," Jacob repeated, his voice raw. The man's hand rested on Jacob's shoulder, and the blessing was given, not in the form of wealth or safety, but in a new identity, a new destiny. Then, as the first full light of dawn spilled over the river, the man released him and stepped back. In that moment, Jacob saw something, perhaps the faintest glimpse of divine radiance, perhaps the fire of eternity in the man's eyes, and then he was gone. The riverbank was empty once more, save for Jacob, limping and breathless. He named the place Peniel, the face of God, for he said, "I have seen God face to face, and yet my life is preserved." The limp would remain for the rest of his days, a constant reminder that he had wrestled with the Almighty. It was not a wound of defeat, but a mark of transformation. When the sun rose fully, Jacob crossed the river to meet Esau, no longer the same man who had fled 20 years before. He was Israel now, a man who had wrestled with God and survived.